Google just can't win when it comes to the EU. And joining us to talk about a new antitrust charge is Mark Bergen from Recode. How's it going, Mark?
Hey, going great.
It's great to have you back here.
Thanks,
so this is getting all too familiar. And we didn't bring you on for Pokemon, which you've also been writing a lot about. I apologize.
That's okay.
Well, I'm sure there'll be plenty more opportunities to bring you back on for Pokemon. It doesn't go away.
It's not going anywhere.
So this is getting all too familiar at this point. Doesn't seem to be getting any easier for Google. Tell us a little bit about the EU's third statement of objections against Google right now.
Yeah, the Google's ongoing headache. It's interesting because it's sort of similar to the prior two outstanding cases, right? We have one for the shopping service and then one against Android. They're very much in a world that sort of doesn't exist anymore. So this is they're saying the ads case is around text ads on other sites. Right? So Google has a relationship with their website and it has a Google search bar, and then they're running the ad results, the search results to put up a search ad. Right, next that's Google's, and the claim is that they were knocking out competitors from getting there. And Google's actually changed the behavior because a lot of the cases from 2006, the original claims, and then by the time this gets resolved, it could be 2 to 3 years from now, and the whole ad world will look very different from there. But it's still going to be a huge problem, and this goes right after the way that Google makes like 90% of their money.
Sure. Yeah, big deal. Obviously, targeting AdWords would be a huge blow for Google if it were to pass.
Yes, I mean, this is Adsense.
Or sorry, Adsense.
That's okay.
Apologize. The existence of competitors like Facebook with their kind of ads efforts. I mean, does that help Google in any way? And I'm sure Google's going to kind of talk this up.
Yeah. I imagine that. I mean, I haven't seen what their defense will be, but I imagine they're going to point just to Facebook, right? And they say like the claim that Google is dominant in online advertising. Facebook is the best counter to that, right? Especially in mobile advertising, Facebook's actually much more dominant than Google.
Mm-hmm. Is Google kind of talking about this at all at this point? I mean, I think they had, a pretty brief statement, but they have a lot of work to do, I suppose.
They haven't said a thing publicly. They put out a couple of tweets this morning. I think their strategy has been, especially with the EU, is to stay as quiet as possible. And it's been, it's a huge frustration, and I think there's certainly people in the company that have, left and pointed out I don't think they took it as seriously as they should have. They didn't have a really great strategy for Brussels initially. They thought they were going to win the case a few years ago. They didn't expect it to come back last year. I don't imagine they expected 3 different charge sheets now.
The interesting thing is one of the last major cases with Google was with news in Europe, and eventually Google just said, fine, we'll just shut it down. To which many European vendors said, no, don't do that. Wait, you can't do that. Wait, no, you have to stay alive and you have to do what we want. It sounds as if Google kind of just ignored what kind of a threat this would be. And this was not news. This was not a product that they don't care about. This was one of their major sources of revenue. So has there been any word from Google about why they didn't take this seriously?
Not an official word. I mean, my best sense is that I think they thought they were going to get a settlement with the prior commissioner of the EU. They had, a kind of a chummy relationship with Google, and there 3 different times when they had a settlement on. Depending on who you talk to, especially if you talk to Google, it's the German telcos and the publishers that were really the ones pushing this the entire time. And I don't think they kind of underestimated the power of those rivals there.
Okay. So this has obviously been expected for a while. You wrote an article last year just kind of hinting at the possibility of this eventually. Any signs to expect any more charges kind of in different directions at this point? It really just kind of like seems like the EU is laying on charge after charge.
Yeah, there was, from my understanding, it was that they were kind of maybe like grouped together. There are some people thinking that the commissioner was thinking about grouping together charges, whether it's now because like Yelp and Expedia and other companies have been talking about local search as another one they want. Yeah. Certainly Yelp's love to see the EU come after and say like, okay, you're also abusing your power, Google, and local search results. I sort of have a feeling they might actually put that in, kind of group it together with the shopping case. But, I spent a little bit of time in Brussels back in February. And everyone I talked to, the sense is that no one really knows what the commissioner's thinking. She plays extremely close to her vest. So to be honest, I don't think I know, and I don't think Google knows.
Let me ask you this. I mean, Google's primary defense was there are other comparison shopping sites out there, and that they're doing what they do, and those other vendors will do what they do.
Right.
And I understand why the EU rejected that, but at the same time, you could look at something like Amazon and say, well, it's essentially a search engine for a bunch of different vendors that put themselves under the Amazon banner. Why wouldn't they get hit by these same rules? Why wouldn't they get charged of favoring certain vendors, in-house vendors, rather than those third parties that are registered with Amazon? Because it seems as if Amazon has even more power than Google when it comes to that impulse purchase.
And I think that's Google's argument and has been his argument. And that was interesting this morning. And in addition to the ads charge sheet, they had a kind of a supplemental charge statement of objections around the shopping case, which is like we have more evidence now. And part of that evidence that Google's argument has been that Amazon and eBay are competitors with the shopping, right? They're doing, to your point, they're doing the exact same thing. And then if that's the case, like if you look at the market share from Amazon and eBay next to Google, it's Amazon and eBay are clearly much more dominant in e-commerce than Google. But the commission has come back and said, no, we think of those as separate markets.
Yeah, well, that is interesting. So how do you fix this? Because it sounds almost as if the EU is saying, we would like you to break your algorithm, not to show us the most popular results, which would be from you, Google, but to include these lesser known links. I mean, it sounds so counterintuitive to how you design intelligent search engine algorithms.
Yeah, I mean, well, it depends on who you talk to, I suppose, or if you talk to Yelp. They certainly don't think the best results are from Google, but it does. And I think, I mean, it gets to my first point, it's a little bit, and I think there is some credence to the idea that Europe does feel like it's, that there's like so behind the times. This is like very reactionary. I think there's certainly people in the U.S. that think like that Europe is taking the charge on commission or competition and doing something more than what regulators have done here. But it feels so behind the times of where tech is moving. I also think that like Google's strategy is just delay this as long as possible,
right?
And that way it doesn't really adversely affect their business. And they've certainly been able to throw as many lawyers as they can at this. So
yeah,
I imagine they're going to have they would prefer to have a legal fight rather than change anything about their business.
For sure. Until they absolutely have to.